I really didn't want to talk about the paramount bribe given to Donald Trump regarding Stephen Colbert, but it's been apparent to me for some time now that there are people that actually believe that it was because of financial reasons, which I'll explain why it's entirely BS as I break down this podcast. And the only reason why I think it's BS is because you have to understand how the entertainment industry works, be it television or movies. They both are interconnected with each other, and anybody who follows the industry, like me, but also I am in the industry, would understand how it works. So let me break it down to you, because realistically, this is how it would play out. Stephen Colbert comes back from a 2-week vacation. Okay? He comes back and starts talking about how he's pissed off and how he's angry about how his parent company, Paramount, settled with the Trump administration, but it was a bribe, which was basically do this for me and you'll get the merger, which was basically a bribe, basically saying, pay us what you want, pay us the money, and do what we ask, and you'll get the merger. Okay, so he's complaining about that. Nothing bad about that, because anybody would complain about their company. Sometimes they would take it public if, or as we call them, a whistleblower when they get fired. Okay? There's nothing wrong with that. He's entitled to express his feelings about what his company just did. Okay? Fine. 3 days later, he gets on the air. 3 days after that, after all that, he says, "We are canceled, and CBS has informed me it's about financial reasons." Great. And people are celebrating, saying, "Oh, it should have been a long time ago." Okay, now, you don't find it as a coincidence that 3 days after bashing his company about taking a bribe, he suddenly gets canceled. Now, putting that aside for a minute, Stephen Colbert's contract does end in 2026. So, whether or not he was going to re-up is irrelevant and immaterial, and the truth of the matter is, he probably would have said, "Fuck you" to Paramount and wouldn't resign. If the show wasn't canceled, he probably wouldn't resign, because, hey, why would anybody want to be in a company that caved to a dictator? Right? I wouldn't want to re-up. I would just go somewhere else. And what could CBS do? Hire somebody else to host a late show and make sure that person is aligned with Trump and his policies. Okay. But they're canceling him in 10 months from now, which is May, which is likely when his contract expires. And rather than replace him as a host, and he said, "I am not being replaced. They're taking it all away. It's all going away," which means the Late Show is going away. Kaputski, Bupkis, goodbye, have a nice day. And they're basically retiring the Late Show, which was first started decades ago under David Letterman. Okay. Now, I don't know about you, I don't know about you, but if you're losing money, you find ways to cut costs. And you do everything in your power to do that. It's like a TV show. Let's put that on a TV show. Okay. If you want to renew the show, one of the things the network is going to say to you is, cut the costs. The show is too expensive to produce. Find a way to cut costs, and we'll renew you. One of those ways is an actor is willing to take a pay cut so that the show stays on the air. Or they fire some actors, right? Or they find ways of doing less location shooting. There's many ways to cut costs in a business or a television show. And canceling it would be the last thing you would do, because first you got to try everything else. And sometimes you cancel the show because of the ratings. So here's the thing with this. If the Late Show is losing money, right? Where were they a month ago? Where were they 2 months ago? Where were they a year ago? If the Late Show is losing money, as they claim, couldn't they have asked Steven Colbert to take a pay cut? Couldn't they ask his staff to take a pay cut? And I can tell you that it doesn't cost that much money to produce the show. There's no special effects. There's no visual effects. There's very little post after the show's done, because the show is same day tape. They tape that show, and the show that the audience sees live in the studio is the show that's going to be beaming to households all over. I know this because I actually gone to the show. And so the show that they film in the studio on that day is the show that is going to be airing hours later. And so that show doesn't cost that much to produce. And that goes for Seth Meyers, Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, The Daily Show. Well, maybe The Daily Show, it's a whole different category. But the point is, the show doesn't cost that much to produce. And if the show was financially doing bad, first of all, if your show was losing $40 to $50 million a year, that's a problem. And you got to ask yourself, why? Where are we losing the money from? Because we're getting money because the companies, advertisers are paying us to air their commercials, right? We're not paying celebrities to come on the show because they're only there to promote whatever project they have. And it may not be a celebrity. It may be a musical guest. It may be a book author. Maybe a presidential candidate, or the president, or a senator. They're not getting paid to come on the show. They're not paying audience members to come to the show. Tickets are free. And it's amazing. I went to Steven Colbert yesterday, which was Monday, July 28th. And people messaged me saying they actually paid you to go to the show, and I'm like, no. I said no. TV shows are always free, and they've always been free, and they never ever charge for tickets. And in fact, they are widely publicly available on websites. It's not a secret. You can get tickets to any TV show, whether it's in California, Atlanta, New York, Canada, Louisiana. You can get tickets to any show. And you say, well, why would you go to something that's a waste of time? For the excitement, for the thrill, for the experience? Because you're a tourist and you are watching a show and you're going to a show that you may never be at again? There are many different reasons. But it's amazing how you have all these people who know absolutely nothing about the industry, but they're criticizing it. Why? Because Donald Trump said so. And so they're just following the rabbit down the hole. And Donald Trump doesn't know a damn thing about the entertainment industry. All he knows is they spoke bad about it, the show's got to go. Well, that's a dictatorship right there. Because you know nothing about how the industry works, but because they said jokes about you that you don't like, cancel it. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. Because the truth of the matter is, every president, for as long as late night's been around, every president has been made fun of. And they know this. And they know this. In fact, when Obama was the president, Jimmy Fallon used to do a segment called Moonlighting News, or something to that effect. And there were times when Obama was in town, he would join in on that. And he would make fun of himself. He would make fun at his own expense. And he knew that. He knew that if he went on the show, he was going to be the laughing stock. And he took it. Another example, the White House Correspondents' Dinner, where they roast the president and the administration. And every president knows this. Every president knows that at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, they are going to get roasted. Obama took it in stride and gave it right back. He just roasted every single person back. And you know what? A lot of his jokes got laughs. You know why? Because he has a thick skin. And he knows that if he's going to take it, he's got to give it. Or he knows that if he's going to give it, he's going to take it. And so every president, from Bush, Trump, Biden, Obama, Clinton, they were all the butt of late night jokes, and none of them cared. In fact, Will Ferrell had a whole thing with Bush on SNL. He would always portray Bush, and not always in the best of lights. Dana Carvey also did Bush, but he did the first Bush. In fact, I remember that very clearly. His whole thing was, not gonna do it, no, not gonna do it. And this is from decades and decades and decades. And not one president had issues with it. Were there times where they probably took a joke too far? Yes. But every single president had not one iota of an issue with it. Obama went on Fallon, made fun of himself, and he knew he was making fun of himself, and that was the point. Biden, yeah, because for years that's what late night would do. Nobody's watching the Tonight Show because they wanted to be serious. People watched the Tonight Show because it was a way for them to unwind after a long day before bed. That was the whole thing that was designed, and everybody took the model of the Tonight Show and did their own thing. I mean, look, you have Craig Ferguson, who had his late show that came on after Letterman. Okay? And he openly flirted with the ladies in the show. He knew that. They knew that. The producers knew that. CBS knew that. Not one person complained. And it was blatantly obvious that Craig Ferguson was flirting with the women. It was very obvious. He didn't try to hide it. The women didn't try to hide it. Nobody tries to hide that. Okay, granted, you're on at 12:37 at night, so it's easy to get away with. But that's still not the point. That's still not the point. Okay? And it's so it's kind of, and what makes this worse, what makes this worse is they say they're losing $40 to $50 million a year. Okay, But then they spent $1.5 billion for South Park. Not only for the exclusive streaming rights on Paramount Plus, but they give Matt Stone and Trey Park a brand new contract that includes streaming rights, to be the exclusive streaming rights for South Park. $1.5 billion. Now, if you're losing money, right? How can you afford to pay 1.5? If you're losing $40 to $50 million a year, as you claim, which we still have not seen any evidence to back that theory up, then how can you afford $1.5 billion for a television show? And to add insult to injury, the season premiere made fun of Trump. Not only did they make fun of Trump, they made fun of his little schnitzel. And word has it that Trump was furious. He was so furious, he demanded they cancel South Park. But South Park is satire. Now, I don't watch South Park at all. I've never seen South Park. This was maybe the first time I saw it, just because I wanted to see what everybody was talking, just to see why Trump was so furious about it. But South Park has made fun in the 27 years they've been on, or I should say 27 seasons, because I don't know. But in the 27 seasons that they've been on the air, they've made fun pretty much about anything. And it's satire. And Matt Stone and Trey Parker, refused to apologize. Because what they do, made fun of being that was their statement to Paramount. That was basically their fuck you to Paramount. But they did it in a comedic way. And the fact that Donald J. Trump was furious about it tells you all you need to know. And the proof that Colbert was canceled because of Donald Trump was in a tweet that Trump wrote that says, "I am so glad that Colbert was canceled. Next stop, Jimmy Kimmel. He's next." That's basically admitting guilt without saying anything. That's literally saying you're guilty without admitting the guilt. And if you notice, Colbert was canceled a week ago. If you notice, a few days after that, the FCC approved the merger. Now, if you can't figure this out, then you truly are part of the cult. Because I'm putting it together for you. And like I said, if you're in the industry and you know how it works, you know that anyone would cut costs to stay afloat, or to stay on the air, or get a renewal. Because you speak bad about the company saying how it's a bribe. 3 days later, you're canceled. A week later, you're spending $500 million to get the exclusive streaming rights to a show that the next day, ironically, makes the Trump administration furious because you make fun of the president. Think about that. And then the merger gets approved. And then when you ask the SEC about the whole Steven Colbert cancellation, he doesn't take accountability for it. He basically makes up some BS story and says Colbert's not funny and he had it coming to him. Really? So why is Tonight Show not canceled? Why is Jimmy Kimmel not canceled? Why is Seth Meyers not canceled? Why is The Daily Show not canceled? Why is Steven Colbert the only one that's canceled? And by the way, The Daily Show is part of Paramount. The Daily Show is part of Paramount. It is Comedy Central, which is part of the Paramount group. Why are they still on the air? And Jon Stewart makes fun of Trump all the time. Every single one of those hosts that are on The Daily Show are not pro-Trump. They all speak negatively about him. Jimmy Kimmel, Seth Meyers, I've seen all of the monologues. I've seen the close-up that Seth Meyers does. Why are they not? Why are they making an example out of Stephen Colbert? What did Stephen Colbert ever do to Donald Trump besides doing a monologue? And so I call bullshit on the whole season. On the whole reasoning, I'm sorry. I call bullshit on the whole reason. Financial reasons? Yeah, okay. Did anybody see the books? Did Donald Trump see the books that CBS did? Did the FCC? Did CBS release figures proving that they were losing money? No. Did they even have a conversation with Colbert and say, you have to take a pay cut costs somewhere? No. Did they even give him a warning that the show was going to be canceled? No. It just came out of nowhere. And you mean to tell me it was because he's not funny? Or because his ratings? How do you cancel? How are you losing $40 to $50 million a year when you're the top-rated show in late night? And there are statistics. And you can find it online. How are you losing $40 to $50 million a year when you're the top-rated late-night show? That doesn't add up. And it doesn't make any sense. Because if you're the top-rated show, how are you losing money? Where the hell are you losing money if you're the top-rated show? And I'll give you the perfect example, which is Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld called it quits after the 9th season. The show was so popular that NBC offered him an insane amount of money for one last season. And you know what Jerry said? No. Why did he say no? He says, because you don't want to dilute the brand. You want to go out on top. And there was no guarantee that a 10th season would have been as funny as the 9th or the 8th. And you don't want to overstay your welcome. You have to know when to walk away. Because there are a lot of shows that had the perfect ending, where they could have just ended the show and made it the series finale, but the show came back by firing half the cast or letting them go, and the show wasn't the same, and it just had a lousy season. And Seinfeld wasn't losing money either. Yes, it was a different time back then, but Seinfeld wasn't losing money. Seinfeld was actually on the verge of cancellation for the first 3 seasons. Seinfeld was on the verge of cancellation. It was only when they started bringing in people like Larry Charles and Peter Melman when the show hit the peak, and the show became what it became, which was around the 4th season, which was around the 4th or 5th season. Okay, when you had episodes like The Contest, or the Mall, or The Parking Lot, you know, those were shows that weren't even losing money. Those shows were bringing in a shitload of money for NBC. So, if you're the highest rated show on late night television, how is it even possible to be losing money? Okay, explain it to me. You have advertisers that are paying to air their commercials during those time slots. And those commercials aren't cheap either. So, and you're the number one rated show in late night TV, right? So how would you lose money? And this is something that nobody is asking. His base truly believes it's for financial reasons, but they don't even give a shit because they don't understand. They believe what Trump tells them to believe. They think they know how the industry works, and you can tell them from here until tomorrow how it works, and they're going to say he's not funny. Is he not funny because you never liked him? Is he not funny because he makes fun of Trump? Or is he not funny because you believe he's anti-Semite? And if he's anti-Semite, then why in the hell would he have Jews on his show? I don't know about you, but if I was anti-Semite, why would I have people like Josh Shapiro on my show? If I was anti-Semite, why would I have Adam Schiff on my show? Two people he actually had on his show. It was Adam Schiff who actually broke the news about the cancellation because he happened to be the guest on that show that night. So where are they getting the idea that Steven Colbert is an anti-Semite? Did he ever say he was an anti-Semite? Did he ever say anything that would imply he's an anti-Semite? And if you're an anti-Semite, you wouldn't have Jewish people on your show, right? It's like if you're anti-white, why would you have white people on your show? Right? If you're a white supremacist, why would you have blacks on your show? It's the same thing. You say it's anti-Semite, but you don't back up that with evidence. You say it's financial reasons, but you're not asking questions. You're saying the ratings are bad, but it's the opposite. That's why facts matter. And I've done these podcasts to say facts matter, because when you don't have facts, you don't know, then you're not credible. You can believe whatever you want to believe. As Mark Twain said, you can distort the facts any way you choose to, but know the facts first. And don't you think CBS only saying what they're being told to say? You're forgetting one thing. David Ellison, who runs Skydance, who's the CEO of Skydance, which is the one that's merging with Paramount, he's a MAGA. He's a Trump supporter through and through. And so he is going to do what the FCC is going to tell him to do. Now, what people are forgetting here is that the FCC is supposed to be independent from the president, from the White House. That's what people are forgetting. The FCC is independent, and that's by design, which means they are not supposed to be biased. And the fact that the head of the FCC is doing the bidding of Donald Trump is a problem. Because you canceled Colbert because of financial reasons, which I put in quotes. Who's to say he's right? Who's to say Jimmy Kimmel is next, or Donald Trump is next? I'm sorry, Jon Stewart is next. Who's to say that? Who's to say? I mean, okay, Jimmy Kimmel is also on his last contract that runs out in 2026, and he himself said he doesn't know if he wants to continue. Now, if I was going to cancel my show, I want to go out on my own terms. I would cancel the show because I am making that decision. I am making the decision to cancel the show because I'm going out on my own terms. If I ever had a show and the day came that I had to cave to Donald Trump because he doesn't like what I'm doing on the show, that's the day I hang up and call it quits. That's the day I say, you know what? Screw you. I'm calling it a day. I'm going out on my own terms. And so when you're in a cult, you're brainwashed. And as much as it pains me to say this, that's exactly what's going on here. These are people who are so convinced, they actually believe the lie for financial reasons, without even asking any questions whatsoever. And I get it, because you don't care. But anybody but you're asking questions that make no sense. They're paying you to go see the show. Are they that desperate? No. No TV show has ever charged for tickets. Every ticket for any TV show is publicly available online, regardless of what it is. And you know why? Because they need an audience. They need an audience. And to prove that point, they actually do wardrobe notes. When you go to the audience, when you're going to a taping of a show, they're telling you what you shouldn't, what you can and cannot wear. Certain colors cannot be worn because they don't mesh well on camera. And so they're telling you this. They're not paying you. They're telling you you're going to come, you can come, but be prepared to stay for a few hours. Now, there are certain shows that do pay you to be in the audience, but they are 3-day commitments. They are 3-day commitments, and you have to show up for all 3 days in order to get paid. That is the catch that they're giving you, is that in order to get paid, you must show up for all 3 days, and they will book you only if you can commit to those 3 days. But they're also saying, we are not going to reimburse you for travel expenses or lodging expenses. And they're being very upfront about that. But in no way, shape, or form does Late Show with Steven Colbert pay for an audience. In any way, shape, or form does NBC pay for anybody to show up to the audience. People who want to come to the audience can go specifically online, request tickets for a specific date. And the same thing with the movie screening. Movie screenings, you don't pay for either. You sign up for tickets, and if they give it to you, they email you and say, congratulations. How many people? And when you try to correct them, they call you names like you are a certified retard, which is offensive and insulting at its finest, because they don't want to hear that they are wrong. And so they go and attack you, because they want to believe they are right. Even if they're not, they want to believe they're right. So if you tell them that Colbert wasn't canceled for financial reasons, and they believe that it was, you ask them for proof, they will immediately deflect to something else. You weren't even talking about it. Like, I want proof about Steven Colbert. I want proof that A, B, and C, and then they're like, oh, by the way, did you hear about Obama? But we weren't talking about Obama. But we weren't talking about Obama, and in fact, this whole Obama scandal is a deflect from the Epstein files. And people truly believe this to be true. Forget the fact that it was debunked 4 times, and they even hired a special prosecutor to investigate, if you recall. And the prosecutor couldn't find any evidence to the contrary. And the fact that Tulsi Gabbard, who most believe is a Russian spy, reopened this case, is basically a deflection from the Epstein file. And people believe this too, even though it's publicly available, that says it was debunked. It was debunked 4 times. They found nothing. It's publicly available, but but people are believing it because Donald Trump said it's true. But Donald Trump makes a lot of crazy shit up. No matter how nonsensical it's going to be, he is going to tell you it's true, and you are going to believe him. That is what makes you into a cult. When you believe everything you're told without question. It could sound. It could sound. It could be the most stupidest thing ever. It could be the most nonsensical thing ever. But your cult leader said it's true. It's true. Because Donald Trump believes he knows better than everybody else. He believes he knows better than economists. He believes he knows better than doctors. He believes he knows better than NBC. He believes he knows better than everybody. But he knows absolutely shit. And so facts do matter. If this now, if you showed me your books, and you said to me, yes, he's losing money, then yeah, okay. But then the question you ask yourself is, well, if he was losing money 3 years ago or 6 months ago, why did you approach him and tell him to take a pay cut, or have the staff take a pay cut, or let some people go? Okay, I mean, you say he was losing money, so now now if they're losing money, how is it specifically only for the Late Show? How come no one else is losing money on CBS? How about deals that other people have at CBS? Why aren't they losing money? Right? What about deals with, studios? For instance, Chuck Lorre. Why are you attacking Paramount? Why not say Warner Brothers? Why not say Disney? Disney has a lot of DEI and LGBTQ, and we all know how Trump feels about it. So why are you not attacking ABC or Disney? This all has to do with that merger, because everything happened. Because when the FCC was agreeing to the merger, they said with the contingencies, they wanted to know point blank. And in fact, just today, as I was coming home, I see this. Never lose sight of the fact that Donnie ran on a promise to release the Epstein files, a promise he swore to keep, right up until the moment Pam Bundy took him aside and said, "Shut the fuck up about the files already. Your name is all over that shit." That's when the files magically went from real to hoax. So, Trump is a known liar. And you can't say anything because, God forbid, you speak bad about the king, the all-powerful king. He can do no wrong. And he said, this is an administration that's going to be transparent with you. We will never lie. We will always be transparent. Okay. But if you're transparent and you don't want to lie, so why are you releasing the files? Why are you releasing the files? In fact, when the birthday card was released, and they saw the names of, say, Bill Clinton on there, or Vera Wang, and every other else, they all said, yes, we were on there. Yes, we sent our birthday wishes to Epstein. Yes, we did. Trump, fuck you. It's a hoax. It doesn't exist. It's a scam. Okay, then who wrote the sexually explicit material? Somebody pretends to be you? But hey, financials, we believe it. Yep, doesn't believe it. He wasn't funny. His ratings were low. It's gonna be fine. Financials, no. But Donald Trump, we believe him. You can't have it both ways. You just can't. And by the way, is he doing his job as a president, or is he worrying about what everybody else is doing and trying to control it? Because last I checked, the President of the United States was supposed to be running the country and not worrying about what NBC is doing or what Jonathan Taylor is doing down the block. You know, This is a person that has to comment about every stupid little thing. For instance, over the weekend, he made up a lie about Beyonce being paid for endorsements to show up at Democratic events, and she should be prosecuted for it. This is no problem. Never happened. It's a bullshit story, and it's also illegal. It's a federal crime. He's complaining that she showed up, but she didn't sing, and she got paid for literally doing nothing. I hate to be the bearer of bad news here, but you don't have to sing. You can get paid for showing up, but you don't have to sing either. If I'm a singer and you want me to show up to an event publicly to be the host or to help promote it, I can choose not to sing. I can say, charge me $1.5 billion, but I don't want to sing. And I put that in the contract. Okay, who says I have to sing? Why can't I just show up to appear at an event and be paid for my time? Who says I have to sing? If I'm a comedian, who says I have to tell jokes at a signing? If I'm doing a signing, or if I'm doing an appearance, who says why do I have to tell jokes as a comedian? Why can't I just get paid for showing up? And this is what I mean. Donald Trump doesn't know anything. He's trying everything he can to deflect by saying things out of thin air. But by posting things on Truth Social that make absolutely no sense. It's just shit. It's just nonsensical, and it's like a fairy tale where he lives rent-free in his delusional mind. And he wants to prosecute Beyonce and Oprah for showing up at an endorsement that Democrats had and got paid. And he demands how much they got paid. And people are believing this. Again, no proof, none whatsoever. It's like people forget what the laws are. It's like people forgot why they're going to school. People forgot why they went to school. And people forgot their civics lessons in school, or the Constitution, or the laws of this country. But Donald Trump says it, must be true. He got cancer for financial reasons. Ratings are low. Well, if you don't watch the show, how can you say the ratings are low? If you don't follow him, how do you know the ratings are low? Because MAGA told you? Because Trump told you? Or because that's what all the right-wing idiots said? Someone told me last night, how was the indie film you were on? I was like, from someone that someone cast you in. I'm like, what indie film? The one you worked on. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, because that casting person hasn't booked me in months. So I don't know what's the name of the film. Like, well, somebody said they saw you. I said, somebody said they saw me, and you believe everything you hear? Well, they have no reason to lie. I'm like, okay, and I had to go and prove that where I was. I took a picture and showed. I said, I don't know what you're talking about, but this is where I was. And it's on my Facebook too. So if you want to see where I am, look on my wall. But people will believe whatever they want to believe. And all I'm saying to you, and I'm ending it right here, is that the Epstein file, the Steven Colbert story is complete and utter bullshit. And not only is it bullshit, everybody says it's bullshit. In fact, John Oliver came to his defense, Jon Stewart came to his defense, Seth Meyers came to his defense, Jimmy Kimmel, who's on vacation with his family for the summer, while on his vacation, came to Colbert's defense. Even Letterman came to his defense. Conan O'Brien was smart enough to stay out of it, for now. And Jay Leno decided to say politics shouldn't be on late night, except for the fact he did the same thing when he was on the Tonight Show. His monologue was also about presidents or governors or senators. And I'm not just saying that they are coming to his friends because they're all friends and they all work in the same circles. And I'm not saying that because Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert used to have shows back to back on the Daily Show and they're best friends. And I'm not saying that Letterman because Stephen Colbert took over when he retired. They're doing it because they know who Donald Trump is. And they know it's pretty much bullshit. Because no one... And if you must know, the ratings for each of the shows come out weekly. So it's very... And they're publicly available. So they're very easy to see. All you got to do is go to Nielsen's.com or wherever you can see the ratings. Because they are released publicly. The New York Times actually prints them on the weekends. And most websites print them. USA Today, TV Line, Deadline, they all have, they're not a secret. And if anybody bothered to check, they would see the ratings for each show. And I'm not just talking about prime time. I'm talking about daytime, late night, the news, everything is there. And you can see it. Demographics, age, ratings numbers, you can see them all. It's not a secret. So if you're a top 10 show and you're losing millions and millions of dollars, then you're doing something wrong. But if you're losing $40 to $50 million a year on a show and you're very much aware of it and you don't do something about that, that's on you. Because I can tell you that if a company is losing money, they want to know why. And they want to know what they can do to fix it. That's what normally you do. You don't just say, we're canceling the show for financial reasons and we're calling it a day. No, that's just saying, no, we don't really want to give you the real reason. And by the way, it's also an FU to Stephen Colbert because Stephen Colbert's been on the Late Show for 10 years. For 10 years. And he's brought in all the money you can give to CBS. And what CBS is doing right now is basically, fuck you. Thank you very much for your service, but fuck you. And at this point, Stephen can do whatever the fuck he wants on his show because he's been canceled. He has nothing to lose. So he can say whatever the fuck he wants about CBS, about Paramount, about David Ellison, about Donald Trump, because he has nothing to lose anymore. They canceled him. And I love how all these MAGA people and all these right-wingers are going to say he will never get a job again. I'm like, no, he can get hired anywhere he wants. I can guarantee you any network will sign him. Or he'll do what Conan O'Brien did. Go, or what everybody else did when they got fired. Get a podcast. Conan O'Brien is very successful at his podcasting, and he has a show on HBO. He has a show on HBO that's also very successful. His podcast is immensely financially successful, and he'll be hosting the Emmys for the second time next year as well. So Conan O'Brien is doing, and he went out on his own terms. When NBC fired Conan from The Tonight Show, Conan basically had nothing to lose at that point, and spent all of NBC's money and told NBC to go fuck yourself by doing things that would cost massive amounts of money that he normally wouldn't do, but he was fired, and he didn't care, so he just did everything at NBC's expense and says, go fuck yourself, here, pay for this, I'm doing it, I don't give a shit what you say. And you know what? Conan O'Brien is very successful in what he does. It took him a while to figure it out, but he now has a Conan podcast that's enormously, hugely successful. He has an HBO show, an HBO Max show that is doing okay for itself, and he's hosting the Emmys. again. I'd say that's pretty good for a man that got fired from the Tonight Show, right? So Stephen Colbert will be okay. He even said he might run for the Senate of South Carolina. Would he win? I don't know. But Stephen Colbert more than earned his retirement. So, what will he do? I don't know. We have 10 months to figure it out. But I can guarantee you, he will not have a problem getting a job elsewhere. He spent his entire career, that I know of, with Paramount. What he does next will be a mystery. But I can guarantee you this much. He ain't going away. The Late Show is, but he ain't. And I stand with Steven, as does many others. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he does for the next 10 months, knowing that he can do whatever he wants since he's already been fired. And what he does after that, I will follow him, and so will a lot of other people. Will he follow Conan? I don't know. Will he go Letterman's route and stay retired and then get some show on Netflix like Letterman did? I don't know. But it'll be an interesting 10 months, that's for sure. And all I can say is, he and many others will have the last laugh.